We're in an age of gaming where everything can be patched and fixed, no matter how bad things are at launch. So we looked back at some of the most improved games out there, ones that today far outshine where they were at release. Here are 6 games that started out rocky, but have become something truly great. Anyone who tried to play Diablo 3 the day it launched in May of 2012 will be familiar with the issues it faced. The servers were plagued with errors and connection problems that prevented many people from playing it for a portion of its first week. Unfortunately, the worst was yet to come for Diablo 3. Inferno difficulty turned out to be a grueling slog that incentivized skipping combat entirely in search of chests and goblins. The launch of the real money auction house only compounded this issue, as hours of tedious grinding could be avoided with a small real money expenditure. However, a little over a year later, Blizzard announced they would be shutting down both the in-game gold and real money auction houses, and revamping the loot system as a whole, alongside the Reaper of Souls expansion in March of 2014.
Will stop you. No one can stop death.
These updates fixed most of the major complaints people had with the core of Diablo 3, but that didn't stop Blizzard from iterating. Kanai's Cube, Greater Rifts, and many other additions have given players a reason to return to Diablo 3 over and over again. Final Fantasy XIV is one of the most legendary comeback stories out there. Its original launch in 2010 was an absolute mess, causing Square Enix to completely shut down the game just 2 years later. It was relaunched in 2013 as Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, which was a fitting name as it truly represented a rebirth for the game. After the addition of the Heavensward expansion in 2015 and Stormblood in early 2017, Final Fantasy XIV has cemented itself as one of the best MMOs currently available, which makes looking back at just how low it started all the more impressive. Warframe wasn't a bad game at launch, but if you played the current version today, it would be impossible to go back. It's hard to find a system or mechanic that hasn't been significantly reworked during its 4.5-year history. The melee system was revamped in 2014, the movement system in 2015, and the map and level progression in 2016. All of these are nearly unrecognizable compared to their launch state and, without a doubt, some of the best aspects of the current game. Possibly the most impressive part of these constant updates is that they're all completely free, maintaining its reputation as one of the most generous free-to-play games around. At launch, the original Destiny was light on content, lacked any sort of coherent story to its campaign, and featured a character voiced so poorly by Game of Thrones' Peter Dinklage that Bungie actually had Nolan North re-record all of his lines for a later update.
That wizard came from the moon.
But with updates and the eventual release of the Taken King expansion, Destiny morphed into a significantly better game over its 3-year life. Exploits were fixed, content and events were added, and Bungie responded to player feedback to adjust some of the weaker parts of the game. They even began to reevaluate and flesh out the story, which paved the way for Destiny 2. Street Fighter V launched in what can only be described as a bare-bones state. The multiplayer was finished and refined to get ready for tournaments, but there was barely any single-player content, lack of other modes, and only 16 fighters. On top of this, the release was plagued with some seriously bad connection and stability issues. Since then, Capcom has been adding both characters and stages to the game. A free, full-fledged story mode was added last June, and new levels have been given more detail and variant versions as they arrive. The gap in content that was present at launch has slowly been filled until Street Fighter V now feels like the fighting game worthy of the series' pedigree. At launch, Terraria was a very good but very slim side-scrolling sandbox RPG. It was pretty accurately described as 2D Minecraft at the time, and didn't have too much else going for it beyond some neat boss fights. But over the last 6 years, developer Relogic has constantly and quietly crammed Terraria with free updates and extra content, distinguishing itself from that limited label. Comparing it now to the game it was at launch is staggering, with 10 times the number of items it started with added after release. None of these major milestone updates even include the frequent patches with new items and enemies that randomly arrived in between major expansions. Terraria is a shining example of post-launch support done right, and even now continues to grow. Well, that does it for our list. What are some games you think have come a long way since they started? Let us know in the comments below, and for more videos like this, check out 7 movies you might not have known were based on comic books, and for everything else, keep it right here on IGN.